One of my favorite things about college basketball season is the early season tournaments and showcases. Auburn basketball is in the middle of one of those right now, the Cancun Challenge. I want to give you the information that you need to know about this particular tournament for the Auburn basketball fan, yes, but for general college basketball fans as well. Before we do that, always want to remind you to smash the like button if you enjoy this type of content. Also, be sure to leave a comment down below as you're watching or listening. It'll help enter you into our ongoing giveaway prize package with an Auburn signed football. And we always want to thank members of our booster club like Ryan Reese, who help produce videos like this. So the Cancun Challenge, the name alone should tell you where the action is going to be taking place. However, most people weren't aware of this, that the Cancun Challenge has already begun on college campuses. There are 2 different brackets for this competition, more on that in just a second, but they actually got this thing started a little bit earlier. For instance, Auburn's matchup with Winthrop, who they beat handily, might I add, that has already taken place and is technically part of this overall event. The actual action will take place this weekend, the 22nd through the 23rd, and that's what we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about today. So I already mentioned that the Cancun Challenge has 2 different divisions. Those are going to be the Mayan division and the other one, the Riviera division, which Auburn finds itself in and will focus most of our time on. Now, remember, there was non-divisional competition that has taken place, which we already mentioned, not really pertinent to the overall championship of each of these divisions, but from that point on, once we actually get to Cancun, those teams will only be playing amongst themselves. So very briefly, let's talk about the Mayan division. Now, Auburn's not included in this one, so I know that's not important to most of you, but at least for completion's sake, talk about it a little bit. You've got teams in this division like Winthrop, who Auburn just played, Southern Miss, Eastern Michigan, and Purdue Fort Wayne. Now, when you look at the history of this tournament or challenge, you really find that usually teams or conferences that are representing this are usually not as well known. Maybe the lower level of competition, or at least that's the assumed thing there, but you can only operate of what you know right now. We'll just let things play out on the court and make those assumptions later on. But that's typically how this works out in the tournament. I'd expect either a Winthrop or a Southern Miss just because of the name alone. Don't really know much about their programs. I know a little bit about Winthrop after we played them, but that's just kind of my feelings about that division. Now let's talk about the division that you probably are most interested in, and that is the Riviera division, the one that includes Auburn. Other teams in this include Liberty, Northwestern, and Bradley. Those are the teams that Auburn will have to compete in for their divisional championship. So from here, we're just going to talk about what happens from this point for Auburn, or what could happen overall. Their next game is against Bradley. That will be on November 22nd at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the CBS Sport Network. In fact, you can watch all the games on the CBS Sport Network. Now, look, I'm just going to jump out here on a limb. Don't know a lot about Bradley. I will probably after we play them. I'm going to assume that Auburn's going to be able to beat them to move on to the championship round. But we're going to cover what ifs in this as well, just so you have all the information on what to possibly expect for Auburn in this tournament. So regardless of whether they win or lose, they will be taking on a winner or a loser from the Liberty Northwestern matchup. So depending on what Auburn does there and depending on what happens there will determine that game 2 matchup. But here are your things that you need to know about how to stay up to date with what's going on there. For the 3rd place game, if they somehow lost to Bradley, they'd be obviously taking on the loser of that other matchup. That would take place at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, again on the CBS Sports Network. Right after that, regardless, is going to be the 1st place game. That one will take place at roughly 8:30 Eastern Time on the CBS Sports Network. Again, the winner of that matchup between Liberty and Northwestern. Now, here's what I think personally. I really don't have enough information to make an assumption one way or the other about Liberty or Northwestern. But what my gut tells me is that Auburn's going to be facing Northwestern in that championship game. What my head tells me is that they're going to be facing Liberty. So I really don't know which way to go, because Liberty was a recent tournament team, and that's got to count for something. So really, it's kind of up in the air at this point. So that's the main information that you need to know about the matchups for Auburn, but also that are not going to be included in their particular division. I hope you're going to be really excited about following this early tournament and non-conference play as much as I am. I love this time of the year. As you leave today, make sure you drop a comment down below. It will help enter you into our ongoing contest that we mentioned earlier. Be sure to smash that like button on the way out, and be sure to check our link descriptions for ways that you can help support our content here. But we always appreciate you just being here and hanging out with us at E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. War Eagle.